welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of College Football Pros. My name is Nick, and I am joined once again, as always, forever, in eternity, in unity, but not matrimony, Drew. Drew, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about the conference that is the reigning, defending, heavyweight champion of the world, the Big Ten.
I like that. It was a little anticlimactic at the end, but I get it.
I mean, it's just the Big Ten. They don't need any. You don't need. It's the Big Ten.
Look, when you win the national championship, your name kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you say Ohio State, Big Ten. Oh, champions. Awesome.
I mean, I guess the best place to start in terms of discussion is the fact that are we seeing a return to relevance by the Big Ten? I feel like, the media has been dominated so much by the SEC over the last decade.
Yeah.
Is it finally the return to, I don't even know if relevant, I'm kind of jumping between relevance and dominance.
I think relevance is a better term because in the past couple of years they haven't been relevant, especially when Ohio State went undefeated and had to sit at home while, arguably they were the best team in college football a couple years ago when they were, have that bowl ban. So I think relevance is more, apropos than dominance.
Yeah, and I think we could start at a good place where we would absolutely not be talking about dominance whatsoever, and that's with the Indiana Hoosiers. And in 2014, they had the 7th worst passing offense in the country, the 10 best rushing offense, the 64th overall offense, the 97th passing defense, the 83rd rushing defense, the 95th overall defense. They scored 25.1 points per game, and they allowed 32.8. So where do we start with Indiana this year, Drew?
I think it starts and stops with their quarterback, Nate Sudfeld. He did get hurt last year with a shoulder injury. But you know what? He's going to come back healthy, and I don't see any reason why this kid can't lead this team to more high-scoring affairs as they had last year. But again, their defense has got to get better. But I love Nate Sudfeld this year. I think he might be one of the most underrated fantasy guys coming into this year.
Well, that's really interesting. I don't know that I'm entirely there with you.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a top 5 play every week, but I think he's a guy that will be fantasy relevant.
But, I think you'll hear me especially mention as we're going through these conferences a lot, there aren't going to be many times, if at all, that a player is fantasy relevant every single week. Like, every player has down weeks. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's no question about that. I actually love what they did at running back this year. You lose
Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My notes literally fell off my lap as I'm reading that, and I'm like, oh, it was Coleman. Oh, and then I stopped. I apologize. But yeah, you lose Tevin Coleman, but you replace him with Jordan Howard, who was actually a transfer from UAB. UAB canceled their program and have since brought it back, ? Whatever. But yeah, this is a kid that ran for 1,600 yards with 13 touchdowns last year. So he's going to step in and really try to take that pressure off Nate Sudfeld so he can be a better passer. And I can see him scoring 20 touchdowns this year in that offense.
Yeah, and you know what? First thing I would say is Indiana apparently pilfered the UAB roster because
they really did.
Jordan Howard's not the only one. Marquis Hawkins is coming over at the wide receiver position. But for me, there's nobody I like more on this team than Jordan Howard. For a relatively unknown Blazers program at UAB, like you said, he had tremendous stats. I think the most telling were the fact that he actually had the 7th most yards per game in the country. That was at UAB. Now, yeah. Half of the argument to that point will be that it was at UAB and it's not against, larger schools. But my argument would be, okay, well, he's going to be behind a much better offensive line with a lot of starters returning. He's going to have a better quarterback play in Nate Sudfeld. So I think that actually is enough for him to to have just a huge season, and I think that he's going to go somewhat under the radar, especially in the Big Ten, because just off the top of my head, I mean, I think you're going to be looking at Ezekiel Elliott, obviously. I think that after Ezekiel Elliott comes Corey Clement, and I think that he's not going to be put with those two guys, but, you know, there is an argument to be made that he should be. As far as their defense goes, look, I'm still looking for this to be a defense you can target on a weekly basis in daily fantasy.
Oh, their defense has a lot of holes in it. But I think they had a lot of young, inexperienced guys in certain situations last year for injuries, disciplinary reasons. So if these guys can really take that next step forward, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Indiana is going to be a top 10 defense, but they may not be the defense you want to target every single week, as you said, but they're going to be a big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, Western Kentucky, I think, is one of their first games. I remember what Bowling Green did to Indiana last year, and I'm going to have no issue whatsoever rolling out any and all Western Kentucky players. But ultimately, you know, look, one thing that becomes difficult as I've been doing my research is so much of the time you see X returning starters, X transfers, X, recruits, and everything statistically looks like, well, they should have a better year then. But at the same time, number one, not every defense could be having a better year all at the same time. Number two, just as easily if the offense on the other side of the ball, not on Indiana, but a team, let's even just use Western Kentucky, they also have all of their starters returning, so they improve for another year. So isn't there some kind of an offset there? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. I think that it's easy to say it's improved, but it's all relative to who they're going to play against. If they're going to play against a team that we think has been pilfered and is going to have a really tough time, producing, then yeah, they're going to look much better. But if they're going to be playing a team that's been playing with each other for a long time, I don't think they're going to be the quality. Moving along, we're going to go to Maryland. In 2014, they had the 73rd ranked passing offense, 111th ranked rushing offense, 112th ranked overall offense, the 80th ranked passing offense, the 99th ranked rushing defense, for an overall defense of 97th. They scored 28.5 points, and they gave up 30.2. And they're losing one of what I think was kind of the undercover, more exciting athletes in the Big Ten in Stephon Diggs.
He was fantastic the past couple of years. One of the best receivers in the Big Ten and the nation, hands down. I think you're talking about teams that we say can get better, but not. I don't know where this team gets better on offense. They lost so much production in Stephon Diggs. Caleb Rowe steps in at quarterback. I don't know who he's going to throw to. I just don't know where this team is going to score points from. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's nothing that jumps out off the page at me that says, oh, look at right here. The offensive line looked like it provided for about 4.5 yards a carry last year. That's not going to cut it in the Big Ten at all. And Diggs didn't even have a great year last year. I mean, he only went 805 touchdowns, but he is a dynamic playmaker. If you've watched for the last few years, you'll know that, and that's a testament to what could happen to a player that's got a lot of talent if he doesn't have enough talented players around him.
Yeah, and I think the one person that could stand out for me is the running back Derwin Gray. He injured his shoulder in the spring. From everything that I've read and heard is that he's going to be back. But we know with shoulder injuries that if you get dinged on it wrong, if you take a tackle wrong, that could come back up and really prevent you from having a good season. But like I said, other than that, man, this is going to be a struggle for Randy Edsall and Maryland this year.
Yeah, it's not looking great. I'm not excited for what they might bring to the table. And defensively, I think they're going to be in a similar position that they were in last year, a bottom 20% school that's going to really struggle with a lot of teams that are, going to stay as strong or actually get better on the same side of the conference as them. So that takes us to one of the teams that I feel like with this team, I'm not on the same page with a lot of what I've seen a lot of other college football analysts and commentators, writers, and that's Michigan. I don't like Michigan this year. And just real quick, their stats last year: 112 passing offense, 64th ranked rushing offense, 115 total offense. Now here's the good: 19th ranked passing defense, 15th ranked rushing defense, the 7th best defense in the country. Now we'll go back to the bad again: 20.9 points scored, 22.4 points allowed. Michigan is operating on two different sides of the spectrum on both sides of the ball.
I have no idea how people can argue that Michigan is going to take a step forward. You bring in Jim Harbaugh. He's already burning bridges at that school. He's already burning kids out. Kids are coming out on Twitter saying stuff. I don't know. Is it Jim Harbaugh? Is it the way he coaches? Is it from the NFL? But I don't understand. They bring in a guy from Iowa, Jake Rudock. He was the fourth most efficient passer in the Big Ten last season. It's kind of skewed because they didn't throw the ball a lot at Iowa. They didn't really like to do that. You come in with junior Shane Morris, who had some playing time when Gardner got hurt or was benched or whatever. He moved the receiver. I don't know. This team could be a dumpster fire.
And honestly, that's pretty much the way I see it. I just don't I don't know what I like with this team. I watched the spring games and okay, I'm excited because it's been 4 months since I've seen football, college football on TV. So I'm watching the spring games and I watch Florida State and I'm like, "Oh man, this team, it doesn't look that bad considering everything they lost," and I'm making notes and I'm watching other teams, and then I watch Michigan and I'm like, you know what? I have a feeling they're going to surprise me. And I watched the Michigan game and I can remember sending you the text and I'm just like, Michigan is going to be awful this year. They're just going to be awful. The saving grace for Michigan is on the defense. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can call it that, but I just want to make a real quick point on the offense that the one guy, and I mean the one guy that can have any kind of production this year if they let him play in a Jim Harbaugh type offense is running back De'Veon Smith. I really think this kid has the ability and the talent to be a dominant back in college football. I don't know if he has been given the chance or the opportunity yet. And I really, really hope that Jim Harbaugh can come in and give him the ball and let this kid do what he does.
I might be wrong, but isn't he from our neck of the woods? Didn't he go to Howland?
He actually is from Warren, Ohio. Yes, Howland High School. I saw him play in high school. I saw him play his freshman year in Michigan, and they just are not using this guy right. To take it back to our roots and our wrestling roots, they're not letting this kid go. Just let him go. Let him be him, and do not hold this kid back because he's an NFL type guy. He's got an NFL type IQ. And when you're sitting third on the depth chart playing special teams, you can't grow like that. You just can't.
Well, I'm just concerned from an overall perspective that they're on, a new center for the fourth straight year. They're not returning a lot of starters on the offensive line. I mean,
Devin Funchess is gone to the NFL.
But
he's gone.
Even with that, though, he was relatively useless last year. I hate to say that, but if you don't, did you see? I'm sure you saw Devin Gardner play football. I don't know that you can actually call it that. It was not good. It just wasn't clicking. There was very little. There was no synchronicity at all. It just seemed like he was off the page with everyone else. You mentioned the running back. The guy that I think could potentially have some kind of a skill set that if things fall right for Michigan this year is Amara Darboh. I think he's got enough talent to kind of fill in there for Funchess. I don't think he'll be Funchess, obviously, but I think he could be a key component of this offense. But I'm just not a fan, man. I like the defense. I think the defense has the opportunity to stay strong, but it's possible they could actually do worse than 20.9 points per game scored,
Yeah, new defensive coordinator DJ Durkin coming in. The highly touted safety Jabril Peppers. He's got to take that next step. I don't see it. I really don't. I think they take a major step back, and if they make a bowl game, I would be surprised. Yeah, I would be surprised.
And I'm right there with you, and we'll stay in the same state, but we'll cross dimensions completely and totally from a team that we think is going to struggle immensely to a team that could be, at the end of the year, depending on how things fall, they could be at the top of this division and conference, and that's Sparty at Michigan State. Looking at last year, they were the 36th ranked passing offense, the 21st ranked rushing offense for an overall offense of 11, 61st ranked passing defense, the best rushing defense in the country for a final ranking of 8th best overall defense in the country. They scored the 7th most points per game at 43, and they allowed only 21.5 points. I don't see a reason why they can't. Look, I do think there is a potential for the rushing offense to decline, relative to what you would expect a high talent like Jeremy Langford departing would do. I think you'd have to agree with me on that.
Yeah, I mean, Delton Williams, who is he was a penciled-in starter coming into spring, and then he was suspended indefinitely. So I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know what's going on in that situation. They're very, very quiet on that. They have an incoming freshman, again from our neck of the woods, because Northeast Ohio is the best high school football in the nation. I'll argue that with anybody. LJ Scott from Hubbard, Ohio, is a kid that, a lot like Devion Smith, just give him the ball. Give him the ball, get out the way. He can run away from you. He can bowl you over when need be. And talk about a kid that has his head on straight. This kid has his head on straight. There's no reason in the world that with Delton Williams' status up in the air coming into this fall, LJ Scott should get a chance. But it starts and stops with Connor Cook. I was just going to say, they got to find somebody to replace Tony Lippett is my only thing. You bring back R.J. Shelton, Aaron Burnbridge. That's fine. They're good players, but they're not Tony Lippett.
They're not. I think McGarrett King, his name gets thrown in there as well. And I'm going to this guy is my renaissance at the position this year. I think from a fantasy perspective, we were spoiled in 2013 and years prior because you had guys like Eric Ebron, Austin Safarian Jenkins, Jay Samaro. So you had a fairly consistent group of tight ends that were producing. Ebron, I'm sure you remember, he would just put up monster stats.
Yeah, as would E.J. Bibbs from Iowa State,
Right.
Same. You have these tight ends that are the hybrid, kind of like Devin Funchess that we talk about Michigan. Was he a tight end? Was he a receiver? And I think when you have the Ebrons of the world and Josiah Prices of the world, they're not your prototypical just blocking tight ends. They can catch, they can block, they can run over people, and they have really good hands. Yeah,
and so Josiah Price is who I was referring to, and he didn't have a horrible year. He went 374 for 6 last year, but my gut just tells me with Lippett being gone, with Langford being gone, and with another year to kind of be that safety valve for Connor Cook, I think he could be this next big tight end. If I'm a quarterback and I don't have that thoroughbred in the backfield who has the experience of Langford, I'm going to probably look for a guy that I've played with for a while who's big, who's imposing, he's physical, and he could catch the ball. And so in those red zone situations where the ball might have, robotically been handed to Langford over the past couple of years, I really think that there's a prime opportunity for Josiah Price to step up and take a lot of those reps, that yardage, and score, even close to, I wouldn't be surprised to see him at 10 touchdowns come the end of the year.
Yeah, Michigan State has a plethora of tight ends, so they can go to any number of 5 guys really that Coach D'Antonio really rotates in there. So, but I do agree with you. I think Josiah Price takes that huge leap forward, and I think we could be talking about him at the end of the season, as a 15 touchdown type guy. The defense is a little less unsettled for me, and I know they have a ton of talent. And talent wise, they're one of the best in the nation. It's the fact that they lost a defensive coordinator, Pat Narduzzi, to Pitt as their head coach. They got to replace some key guys. Curtis Drummond, Big Ten Defensive Back of the Year, is gone. Trey Waynes, first-round talent, gone. They returned some very experienced guys and some, big-time playmakers, but that defense, will they gel like they did under Narduzzi?
I don't know. It's tough. And Pat Narduzzi, Youngstown, Ohio. We're just going to drop all the Youngstown, Ohio we possibly can.
Yeah, because if you look at it, the Youngstown, Ohio area is the coaching. Look at all the coaches: Stoops, Pelini's, Trussell. Even though he's not born and raised here, he cut his teeth here at Youngstown State.
Right.
I mean, all these guys. It's in Northeast Ohio football in general. Seriously, if anybody on this podcast wants to argue that with me, please tweet me at CFB Pros Drew. Please tweet me and tell me why you think your high school football is better than Northeast Ohio football, and I'll tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm not that big on the high school football scene, and I'm going to allow Drew to argue all he wants. I think it's kind of funny to watch people argue. I think the interesting thing with Michigan State, honestly, is they seem to consistently put out good defenses. I don't worry too much. Yes, it is. The biggest concern so much isn't the talent as far as who's coaching the talent to me. So that's going to be a really big factor in if they're going to be able to continue producing at the level they were. I think the one thing I do want to kind of put out there, do you honestly think a tight end is going to score 15 touchdowns in college football today?
Who else does he have to throw to? If nobody takes that next step, if nobody, Kings, Shelton, if nobody takes that step, and they're going to get to the red zone because Connor Cook is a good quarterback, and whoever's that running back, that offensive line will get them to the end zone. Coach D'Antonio will make sure that happens. And if you get to the end zone, and you look at your offensive line, and you look at your receivers, and you look at that tight end, and you go, get open, I'm throwing you the ball. That is a bold statement.
I like him around 10, but 15, you're talking about elite. Those are good to elite receiving numbers. Maybe not the yardage, but the amount of touchdowns. I don't know that I can. I see 10, and I thought I was being optimistic. I think we should make a bet, in terms of how it all shakes out. If he scores 10, whatever he scores closer to, one person has to buy the other person dinner.
Okay, deal.
Are you fine with that?
Yeah, I'm not talking like a 5.
You.
No. I'll just send you the money via PayPal.
Yeah, that's fine. But send it as a gift. I'm not paying fees.
And I'm not sending you to Delmonico's in Cleveland here. Shout out. I'm sending you to Taco Bell.
Well, that's fine because I could definitely eat $26 worth of food at Taco Bell.
All right.
So who do we have next? Who would logically come after Michigan State in alphabetical order? I think we're going to talk about another Ohio team. What do you think?
I think there was a team in Columbus that did some interesting things last year. I'm not too sure, though.
The Clippers?
And the Clippers, maybe.
The Columbus Clippers? I saw someone in my office wearing that shirt today. I'm not sure if it's a reference to something or...
It's the minor league baseball team of the Indians, yeah. But gotcha. The Columbus Crew had a pretty good season, too, I believe. The soccer team down there.
Yeah, my brother lives in Columbus, so
how about that?
I don't really know what we're talking about all this variety of Columbus teams for. But, hey, what can you really say about these Ohio State Buckeyes? In 2014, 52nd ranked passing offense, 9th ranked rushing offense, 9th overall offense, 29th ranked passing defense, 34th ranked rushing defense, 19th ranked overall defense, 5th most points in the country scored at 44.8, and they allowed 22 points. Oh, and they won the national championship.
There's not much more to say than they're good. They're really good. I don't see a weakness on this team. And if you want to start nitpicking weaknesses, yeah, that's fine. But there is no glaring weakness, as other teams we've talked about and will continue to talk about. There's not one glaring weakness on this team.
No, I will say this. When I posted our link to our podcast on Tuesday about the playoff scenario, I boldly predicted that TCU would win the national championship this year over Ohio State.
Did see that, and I don't honestly understand how you make that argument.
I'm going with my logic of the chip on the shoulder. It's kind of like the changing of the guard. It was when Austin beat Michaels at WrestleMania 14.
With the help of Tyson. With the help of Mike Tyson, by the way.
Well, it doesn't matter, okay?
No, it does matter.
It doesn't. It's semantics. That's what you're arguing now is semantics. I'm talking about it was the change of a guard, and that's what I see. I'm not saying like, oh, Ohio State's done. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that I contend, and I've mentioned it in several episodes already, that a lot of what took Ohio State to the title and to the national championship was the fact that they were playing with a chip on their shoulder. Now I think that chip is sitting on TCU's shoulder. Interesting of note, and I was going to wait to mention this until we talked about the Big 12, but it's relevant to talk about it now. I saw the commissioner at Media Day saying that he doesn't think that his division or that his conference needs a championship game, and he doesn't think it will impact one of their teams having a shot at playing it in the college football playoffs. And I'm thinking to myself, did you not watch football last year?
Maybe he was under a rock somewhere. Maybe he didn't realize. Did you not
see that exact scenario just play out where one,
quite
if not
literally,
two of your teams missed because of that?
Quite literally, that their championship game cost them. You're right. One for sure, possibly two. If
they wouldn't have gotten two in, they wouldn't have.
Maybe, you never know.
But if
it was a close game, but yeah,
I was watching a few nights ago. I was watching some game. I know it was it was Tech and Florida State. Georgia Tech and Florida State.
Well, that was a horrible game.
So I think that was the ACC championship game.
Yeah, it was.
And the commentators were talking about the fact that TCU pretty much had it locked up unless something dramatic happened. And they were like, the Buckeyes are winning 14-0 right now. Obviously, it was early enough in that game. We all know how that one ended.
They just got off the bus at that time.
Yeah, but, I mean, seriously, could you be any further detached from reality in making a comment like that?
Nah, who did you say? The president said that or the AD said that?
The commissioner, somebody, whoever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, whoever said that needs to be taken to a film room and just watch last season because that is exactly what happened. I don't understand.
They should show the final week before the championship, the conference title games, where TCU was ranked third, and then they should show the week after the conference title games where they were ranked sixth. So, yeah, I'm going to side on the fact that they need a title game, but that's neither here nor there. Back to, I know we jumped around because we wanted to plug the fact that we're going to try to be a little more interactive. We're trying to engage our audience. So this podcast isn't just about hearing what we have to say. You've got a forum where you can vocalize what you think is going to happen. I think that's great. That's what we're looking for. If you think we're stupid, you think we say something dumb, listen, I guarantee it's going to happen by both of us at least a dozen times every 40 minutes, okay? Every episode, we're going to say a lot of stupid stuff. So don't hesitate to post on Facebook, hey, Nick, did you get dropped on your head as a baby and to eat paint chips and all the old adages? 5 out of 10 of those are probably going to be true, but still, talk to us, get involved with us. Drew, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, we don't need to put over our audience anymore. I mean, if they want to get a hold of us, they know where to get a hold of us on Facebook at College Football Pros, at CFB Pros on Twitter, and at CFB Pros Drew on Twitter. But back to Ohio State.
I like that. I like the mid-episode drop. We're going to have to do that more often. Yeah, so if we're going to concentrate on Ohio State, look, they've got a great running back. I think we'd both agree at this point, if there was a non-quarterback to be favored to win the Heisman, I would have to go with Ezekiel Elliott.
I mean, he's going to put up over 2,000 yards, and I'll make that bet right now. He's going to put up over 2,000 yards. You mean just against
Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, I mean, literally, he's going to, in the first half, he's going to put up over 2,000 yards against Virginia Tech. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And again, if you want to start nitpicking on weaknesses, and this isn't really a weakness, but can I talk about the receiver that I've been wanting to talk about since we started this podcast?
Yes, go ahead.
Johnny Dixon, a guy from Florida, a guy that can fly, has great hands, is a just meticulous route runner.
Can I interrupt you?
Oh, God, what? I mean, I was putting this guy over.
Does he at least have some family in Northeast Ohio? I don't feel like this is proper. I feel like we've been talking mostly about Northeast Ohio guys. I don't know if we're supposed to break that or not.
Yeah, that is weird. I apologize, but no, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Urban Meyer did a great job recruiting Florida, as he always does, with a guy like Joey Bosa, his brother Nick Bosa, going to come up here next year at Ohio State. So, I mean, again, but Johnny Dixon is a guy that they're going to get him the ball in many different ways. And I want to preface on one thing: he's got to be healthy. He came off an ACL injury last year, a knee injury. He's got to be healthy. And if he is healthy, and everything that I've read is that he is healthy, this is a number one receiver. You have Michael Thomas, who's the leading guy coming back. I mean, he is a good receiver. They all have good receivers. But Johnny Dixon is a guy that is going to be a breakout star, along with Jalen Marshall, Dontre Wilson, Curtis Samuel, who's been working at the different positions here and there. There's just a plethora of weapons. I don't know how. There's only one football, and that is the sad part with Ohio State this year. There's only one football for JT Barrett, 12 gauge, who might have the coolest nickname in college football with Cardale Jones. Braxton Miller is a fifth-year senior. This team, I don't know. I can talk about them. We can make a podcast just on Ohio State.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. The talent level on this team is deep. The defense is going to be a strong asset for them once again, but the biggest problem on their team and in college football, to me, is getting that quarterback situation straightened out. I know for multiple reasons you want to make it so that, you're giving everybody a fair shot, and, it kind of keeps the other teams on edge, especially when you're talking about three highly, like, any of these guys go to any other program, they would start on 95% of other teams. I just think
99% of other teams. I don't know of any college right now that wouldn't take one of these guys over their quarterback, except for maybe a TCU with Trayvon Boykin and maybe Penn State with Christian Hackenberg. Can you, off the top of your head, name a program that wouldn't take one of these guys?
I would take him, but I think Cody Kessler would still play at USC. I think Connor Cook would still play at Michigan State.
You think Connor Cook? Well, okay. I mean, we can agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that also comes down to doing what they do.
Okay, yeah, scheme. Scheme fit. I understand that concept, but I mean, just pure talent-wise, Braxton Miller is one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the nation. Cardale Jones is big and can move and has a cannon for an arm. And JT Barrett is a high IQ guy, so I don't know. I'd take him at Miami. Sorry, Miami.
Yeah. I'm sure you'd take all of them at Miami and spread them out to different positions.
We could absolutely do that. And you wait till we talk about Miami on this podcast. Wow.
JT Barrett, we're going to say, is the favorite to start, correct?
I would agree with that. I mean, people have made arguments for Braxton, and I think Braxton should be given every opportunity to start. I just don't know if he's going to translate to the NFL. I don't know if quarterback is that position for him, kind of like a Terrell Pryor. I think JT Barrett is a prototypical pro-type guy, and by that I don't mean he just sits back in the pocket and throws it. He can do that, but he's also a very mobile quarterback, not as athletic as Braxton, but a very mobile quarterback. And I think Cardale, there was a reason he was third string coming into the season, and I think he remains there. I think that's a hard pill for him to swallow, and I don't know how Urban makes that correlation and the differentiation between these guys, but it's going to be fun, man. I'm pumped for this team.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to have to say about Ohio State. If any team was the opposite of Michigan, where we think that they're just not going to have the ability to do what a lot of people think that they're going to do, the opposite of that would be Penn State. I think they may exceed what other people think. In 2014, they had the 62nd ranked passing offense, the 9th worst rushing offense. Their overall offense was pretty bad as well at 114. Their defense was the 9th ranked passing defense, the 3rd ranked rushing defense, and the 2nd ranked overall defense. They scored a paltry 20.6 points per game, and they allowed the 7th least in the country at 18.6 points. What do you see happening with this program this year?
I see Christian Hackenberg getting sacked more than 44 times, which is a Big Ten worst last year. I don't know if they can keep this kid upright. I think he's got good potential, but that offensive line has to get a lot better. I mean, a lot better.
Yeah, you'd assume that the production really with both the pass and the rushing offense has nowhere to go but up. I mean, I know that Hackenberg is this, prototypical pro quarterback, and in the offseason, I think you'd agree, once everybody put the 2015 draft class behind them and looked forward to 2016, Hackenberg's name came up a lot. And I wonder, did anybody watch him play during the year?
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, everybody has him pegged as the best pro-type offense or pro-type quarterback out there. I mean, he threw 12 touchdowns to 15 picks last year. I don't understand where you're. I mean, is that his team around him? Is that anything else going on? Is that his head? Is that he plateaued his freshman year and he was playing out his what? I don't know. I don't. This team confuses me though. I don't know what's going on with this team, but they confuse me.
I think that they've got, as I said, look, when you have that poor of an offense, there's nowhere to go but up. I think the offensive line should be better. It needs to be better. And if it is better, I think that gives Hackenberg some time to work. And I think when it all shook out, one player that I ended up really high on near the end of last year that I come into the year fairly high on is Akil Lynch. I think he has a good opportunity to really play a pivotal role in this offense and give Deshaun Hamilton and Geno Lewis some opportunity to get open. And it's all about making the defenses honest. And teams that don't have to make the defense honest, like look at Penn State last year, okay, drop back into coverage because they can't do anything else. And you don't even need to keep a full line of guys up front because there's gaping holes in the offensive line that even if you're leaving less guys at the line to rush the quarterback, they're still getting through and knocking him down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know about this team. I mean, we could sit here all day and debate that, Akil Lynch he's going to be one of the top guys in the Big Ten. But if that's all you have, you can't.
Well, I don't think it's just that. I think that in the process of the offensive line getting better, that gives Hackenberg. I mean, you just said about 10 minutes ago that with teams, supposed to be improving on, defense, they're going to get better on offense too. So if the offensive line is supposed to get better, those defensive lines are going to get better. And I'm not necessarily in disagreement with you, but I think as a general rule, if you look at, and all we're talking about here is a potential because we're still 6 weeks away from the start of the season. So you're not talking about anything other than what might happen. I mean, we could both agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what injuries can happen, in the preseason, if you will, the off-season training. You don't know what injuries are going to come, at the first half of the season. But yeah, I mean, on paper, they should get better. But
yeah, if you're just offensing, or if you're isolating the offensive line and saying it should improve as a result of the improvement, Hackenberg doesn't feel as pressured. Akil Lynch has some opportunity to make things happen, and those things will help them get past 20 points a game.
You would think so. I mean, their defense is going to be solid. I mean, I really do. Like doing the research for this defense, Anthony Zettel, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I mean, he's 6'4", 325. That's huge. I mean, and this kid was, fantastic last year, but he needs some help around him in that defensive backfield. And if they can take that next step, I mean, I feel like we're saying that a lot with the Big Ten defenses, if they take that next step, because there is a lot of talent in the Big Ten that has filtered up from the South, with the, inclusion of Maryland, Rutgers coming in, that New Jersey, Maryland, D.C. high school areas, recruiting-wise, they're bringing into the Big Ten. So with the influx of all these new guys, I really feel like the Big Ten, as we said at the top, is a up-and-coming back to dominance and to relevance.
Yeah, and I mean, if they do improve defensively, which is tough to do what they put together, they play spoiler to somebody this year.
Could be.
There's a situation where they could play spoiler to somebody.
Oh, I mean, there's always that situation, but I feel like you're a lot higher on them than I am, and that's fine because we like, discussions in this podcast, but I don't see it happening. I see them going to a bowl game. If they go 3-5 in the Big Ten, or if they go 5-3 in the Big Ten. I think they're in between 5-3 and 3-5. I really do. Somewhere in that 3-game margin for error.
Well, that very well could be. I just contest that one of those 3 or 5 games could be an Ohio State, could be a Michigan State. I think that they can play tough enough that if their offense is clicking, or if the opposing defense just doesn't have that number that day, a lot could happen. And we'll end today on a university that I think is in a tough spot this year, and that's Rutgers, coming off of 2014, where they were the 69th ranked passing offense, 65th ranked rushing offense, 76th ranked overall offense, 78th ranked passing defense, 108th ranked rushing defense, and overall defensive ranking of 100. They still scored 26.7 points per game, but they allowed 30.2. And I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, to me, there's not a ton outside of Paul James and Leonte Carroo that really does it for me on this team.
No, and I think the stat when I'm doing my research, and I didn't even realize this because I'm not a huge Rutgers fan, but they've had 6 offensive play callers in 6 years.
Not good.
Not good at all. I don't care who the quarterback is, Gary Nova. I don't care who it is, but he's gone. Coming in this year, there's a competition, if you want to call that. Chris Lavano. Thank you. He's there, and he's probably going to be the guy to replace Nova. LSU, the kid from LSU, Hayden Reddig, came up there last year, so he's going to compete this year, and he's got some talent. But as you said, Carroo, I think he is the only guy on this team that really stands out to me, other than Paul James and Justin Goodwin.
So we've discussed the Big Ten now, the East at least. Who wins the Big Ten East?
No. That's not the question you need to be asking. Let's ask who finishes second. Let's discuss. Here's where who finishes second, because that's the bigger deal.
I'm at 85% Ohio State first, 15% Michigan State first. So in 85% of my scenarios, I see Michigan State in second. Actually, in 85%. So what I'm attempting to say is it's Ohio State and Michigan State.
I don't see any scenario otherwise, honestly. I think Indiana, and hear me out here, Indiana might be your Penn State in my mind. Indiana could play some spoilers to me. If that team can gel with all the UAB transfers, with the talent that they have, with Nate Sudfeld, I think they could play spoiler, and they could be a tough out, in my opinion.
Well, we're not that far away. But folks, in the meantime, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Let us know what you think on Facebook at College Football Pros, or on Twitter at CFB Pros. And find us online for our podcasts, our pick, and our blog at www.cfbpros.com. For Drew, this is Nick sending you away. You have a great night, and we'll see you next time.